Well, my goodness. What a beautiful day for the end of May, huh? Come on now. All right, y'all don't get on me. Today is National Speak in Complete Sentences Day, and I don't do that very much. So be nice. You don't have to either. But for those of you who have always wanted to say that to someone, why don't you ever speak in complete sentences? Today's your day. You get a chance to do that. I do know people that would like maybe two phrases in a row at least with a subject and a predicate occasionally. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning. Good morning. We have blue skies today.
Oh, it's pretty.
Really nice.
Pretty day. Didn't rain last night either.
I think it did somewhere. I came through Ridgeland and there was...
Yeah, probably did, just not at my house.
Spots.
I'm fairly confident that my house did hit the 1 foot mark for the month of May, but woo, if it wasn't, it was close. My
it's been
goodness.
wet.
Well, it just, yes. Now, of course, the mosquitoes are having a convention.
Yeah.
So.
had the dogs' vet appointments both, back to back in late last week and early this week, so they could get their updates.
Sure.
Get the new technology.
We have to
for the flea and tick.
Stay
and
alert on that
prevention.
world. Exactly.
Mosquitoes are rough, man. I've seen some monsters already, kind of pterodactyl size.
I will admit that I was a bit taken aback when the one as big as the end of my finger showed up in my bathroom. It was like on the wall. What are you doing?
It's like a bear came out of hibernation.
Exactly. How did you get here? Anywho, that's what's going on. So if you want to know about citronella and other things that might help while you're standing next to them to keep the mosquitoes from loving up on you. If you want to talk about DEET, if you want to talk about some alternatives perhaps, because there are a few here and there, we can do that today. We are going to talk with, I think we're going to talk with Peaches this morning. I know we're going to talk with Sophie Wolf about the Bottletree Garden Tour. I have to raise my shirt up.
It's a great logo.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love it.
You know who did this logo?
I don't.
Your favorite baker, Guillermo, did this.
Oh, did he? I thought you were going
to
tell me the guy, the T-shirt guy that does so many designs.
Oh no, Cheney didn't draw this. Guillermo did.
Yeah, because that's from last year. It's like a rendition.
He took it and updated it and changed colors and whatnot, so that each year we get to maintain this beautiful design and yet have a little bit of something for that particular year. So this morning on SuperTalk.tv, you'll get to see me in the T-shirt, but you'll also get to see other wonderful things like the gladiola that bloomed this week. I didn't know that I had any gladiolas left in that particular bed, and suddenly the magnificent magenta flower was there, and I was really tickled about that. So I know there's a lot of things. Today's also the Daylily Show, big one. Sale starts at noon in Hattiesburg at the Depot, and then, of course, the viewing of the daylilies begins at 1. It's free to the public. And I love the note that I got this morning. It won't cost you anything unless you decide to buy all the daylilies. It's good because there's some beautiful ones you're going to want. So, excuse me, when you get yourself down there, be sure and tell them that you saw Eddie Smith's daylilies on the Garden Mama show, because I put up one or two of his. He grows such beautiful ones. Meanwhile, Sarah in Monroe County has got a magnificent, really, really one of the very tall Asiatic lilies that has beautiful red flowers on it. It's more in, this one looks to be in the group where the tiger lilies are, because they're very tall and just lovely, lovely color. Beautiful, beautiful flowers. Gerard's up on the same thing. Hey, Gerard, I love Gerard's pots. My goodness. He puts together some of the most beautiful combinations. This one's geraniums and impatiens and stuff. Just really, really bright colors, beautiful things. He does that. So he has a really good time. Everybody needs a sidebar in their life. You can't just be the most intense political commentator in the world and still go home at night. You got to do something else. And I'm happy to say Gerard gardens, and these are just magnificent.
Well, and he dresses like he gardens. Honestly, he's got such great style,
great taste,
and
yes.
great taste, great color schemes. I was telling him
His
that the
ears
other
are
day.
burning right now.
Yeah, I was bragging on him the other day, man. He always does. He knows how
So
to bring
much
the
fun.
heat with the because it was funny. Scott Sands, he has been sitting in with Gerard and Richard. He's the guy that's a Mississippian from Ohio.
Yes.
But he did a funny thing yesterday. He took an image of Richard and took an image of I and took an image of Gerard and put it in AI and said, all right, tell me what you think about these guys.
Oh, my.
And it was almost identical. what it said about all of us. And but Gerard's was a little bit more.
I got to read that.
Yeah, Gerard's was a little bit more bubbly, and there were much more kudos bestowed upon him because of his very clean look. And it said, well, you may not be on the dating sites, but you are definitely a CEO of this. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Handsome. I mean, I was like, man, this is the best glowing.
Love that.
And I told Gerard, I think they were trying to get us to buy something.
Print that on a shirt.
It's like it was like must have been a disclaimer at the bottom.
Probably.
We will keep telling you all these great things if you buy the subscription. But
you need the chocolate.
It was really funny. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
But we got a kick out. Just Scott's funny.
I do have an AI tip for today, which I was sort of holding on to, but now that we've rolled into it, today is National Autonomous Vehicle Day. And that, of course, means a vehicle that not only drives itself, but also has the features and whatnot of AI so that it knows where it's going. One thing and another. Got to have certain levels of autonomy to actually qualify as an autonomous vehicle. I don't think there can be a person who has control of the vehicle in the car, but those are all test stages. But when it's ultimately that, it has to be determined to have minimal risks and also to have all this really artificial intelligence and machine learning. So in other words, it's got to get smarter as it goes along. Well, that brings me to my AI tip of the day from the English major that you all know and love. That would be Garden Mama. And guess what? There are people, not just high school students, not just college students. Some people actually, submitting these things on a professional basis. And they let the AI do the charting for them and bring things and bring sites. But nobody's going back to see whether they're real. And AI is making stuff up daily. That's the whole point of AI. It's artificial intelligence. It's not necessarily, it draws conclusions. It doesn't necessarily have all the facts.
Yeah, I can tell you, its outlook on me was way more pristine than it should have been.
They hadn't seen you up close.
Yeah, they're like, man, what picture did you send them? I mean, Lordy.
Well, so I'm saying my tip is to become a proofreader and a fact checker for AI would probably be a very good career for someone who is interested in. They're talking about the entry-level positions not so much being there because AI can do these things, but somebody got to check in on that AI. So there you have it. That's my latest one. Thanks, Gerard. Oh my goodness!
We got it before you get knee deep.
Yes,
Faye
yes.
in West Point is our first caller this morning, and I am sure that she has something she wants to discuss with you.
Super. Good morning, Faye. Thank you for calling.
How are you this morning?
Just great. Appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah,
What's up?
Okay. All right. My complaint is deers. Yeah. I have in one bed. You were just talking about tiger lilies and Asiatic lilies. Mm-hmm. In one bed, I had 30 Asiatic lilies and 46 tiger lilies, and the deers, they were just fixing to pop.
Mm. Oh,
and the deers has eat every flower.
They like that stuff.
Every flower off of every one of them. And then I have a hosta bed that's probably, it's as long as a car and probably about 3/4 that wide, just all different kinds of hostas. Expensive ones, cheap ones, some
sure,
of the people give
your
me.
Collection.
They have mowed it to the ground.
Oh, my goodness.
The thing that I have that they won't eat coleus.
Mm-hmm.
They won't eat Dusty Miller.
Mm-hmm.
They won't eat I don't know what but it's like the old-timey red cane.
Oh, like a canna.
That comes back every year. They won't eat that. They won't eat mint.
Yeah. The coleus and the mint are in the mint family, Laminae. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. But anyway, that's something that the deer actually don't like too much, and they don't like silver-leafed plants. So that would explain the Dusty Miller that they're not having a bite of. I just have to be honest with you. I have once watched what happened to an entire driveway full of beautiful knockout roses in bloom for a plant sale many years ago. Mm-hmm. And the next morning the plants were intact and the flowers were every one of them eaten by the deer.
Well,
so I know just what you're talking about.
We'll buy this, we'll buy that, and
Fence.
I've bought everything from something that was $75 a gallon but then, they say, okay, if it rains, you got to redo
exactly,
it.
you got to do it again and again.
I mean,
but
we've had rain every day,
the fencing is really the only answer.
5 gallons.
Yes, fencing is the only answer.
And I put hot peppers. Listen, listen, last year they even eat okra. And you would think that they would not.
You wouldn't think that would be appealing.
Because it's rough.
Yeah.
They eat the okra pods and the stalk. They've even been up on my patio. I live in town. In town. I don't live out in the country. I live in town.
And that's
they have actually been up on my patio.
That's you're singing my song, because that's exactly what has happened, as not necessarily your neighborhood, but as other neighborhoods have moved into space that were previously the deer territory. The deer have to go somewhere. And, of course, we all know about, if this goes to the ultimate length, of course, then the deer take over the town and they're playing cards in the town square. I mean, so we have to do something. But either a fence is going to help you, a hot wire will help, just the little electric fence business will help. You're getting lots of help from friends. Dogs will stop deer, not necessarily, but they do sometimes. Yeah. That's true. That's absolutely true. They also sometimes will uproot the lilies, so you have to know your dogs. But
somebody said about the lilies. I used to have daylilies, and I just finally let them just not die on out, but I've transferred them to other people. Come and got them. But it is crazy how they can just then I bought all those little yard lights, the little the lights that come on at nighttime. Well, all that did was just give them a space to find something that they really didn't know was there.
They like that.
But anyway, I couldn't resist. I'm going to
tell you, and I want
about the lilies.
I want you to think about fencing in a slightly different way. People say, "Well, I can't put a fence up," but you might be able to fence the garden. In other words, not the whole property, but just the garden. And I will tell you that there was a person I used to think was kind of crazy, but the older I get, the more sense it makes. He actually built a chicken wire structure to grow his tomatoes in because he got tired of fighting with the squirrels. And so it didn't, it didn't stop the rain, it didn't stop the sun, it had chicken wire roof and everything, but they couldn't chew through it, so they weren't able to get into the tomatoes. And I don't know that that's the answer, but I do know that the deer can jump over a tall fence. There's all kind of things, that don't work, but if you can get something around your desirable plants, they'll be somewhere else. They won't be able to get in, and they'll go to the neighbors. I'm sorry, but that's what happens.
And neither one of them have flowers.
Well, that's what happens. Is they go, they go start looking for something else. Thank you.
I said, I couldn't resist calling you.
I appreciate it.
About the lilies,
that's so wonderful.
Have a great day,
I hope it goes better. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. Oh my goodness, it's a thing. It is a thing. The deer are. The other piece of this, of course, is that people build houses by the water. And then they ask me what those little chimneys are, and of course they're crawfish houses. So we do move where they live at times.
Well, I can say that I know that deer love monkey grass. That seems
they ate
to
that
be,
too. Huh?
Oh my goodness! Everywhere I've ever lived, I had to build little, chicken wire houses for my monkey grass up and down the driveway, and so did that. This time of year really was the hunting season. You didn't have to worry about them as much.
No, they're on the move right now. Man, they're on the move.
They'll eat anything.
As I said last week, at this time of the year, everybody's looking for a date. So they're moving in greater distances and more space than they would ordinarily. I turned over some leaves that had literally just fallen out of the compost bin this week. And there was an entire dinner party full of earthworms. They were having the best time. I'm like, good grief, let me put y'all over here in the flower bed. You don't need to be in this leaf pile. But it's that time of year that everybody's out there running around.
Apparently, David has a very interesting solution to the deer.
Oh, yeah, the radio.
Yeah, Garden Mama, I put my radio on and turn it on SuperTalk at night.
I have known that to work. I have also known people that would have the radio on the timer and have the motion detecting lights, and the whole thing just lights up at one time, and the deer didn't like that too much. The neighbors didn't either, though. So that was in town.
I'm going to get like a Halloween costume and just put like hunter's orange on it.
Let it fly up.
Have it on a timer that it blows up every about 4 hours, and with a fake gun
lots
or
of
something.
Lights, lots of stuff. Well, and the question is always, and then what? Well, they do go to the neighbor is the thing that most people have told me.
And then what? They probably would eat whatever.
Whatever's there.
Whatever was underneath.
If they're thirsty.
They are such
so thank you, David. We appreciate your fandom. We appreciate you letting the deer become.
Well, they're smarter for it
listeners.
now.
They are. They're having a better life because they had a chance
now
to
they know
listen
what
to SuperTalk.
they know what not to eat, what to eat. The Garden Mama is keeping them informed.
I love that. This is a good one, and we're going to move to a different topic just for a moment. Madison Gardner is saying that as a result of monsoon May, that's in capital letters, the potatoes are turning yellow. Should they be harvested? The lemon balm has taken over a flower bed. So what is it used for? Well, lemon balm is generally speaking a tea or an aromatic in things like potpourri. It's also pretty. It's a lovely plant. But some people will use it in a marinade or in a fish preparation. Just depends on how it's been grown. But I'm more fond of it in tea preparations for that quality. There's the potatoes should be about ready to harvest at this point. Usually we say when they begin to decline is the time to start digging them up and see what you got. So I think you're right on time. Usually we hope for them to be done in May because it gets so hot for the plants. But as you say, monsoon May, things just kind of got a little bit sticky, as they would say, in that soil, and it may be harder to dig them up than it was. This is another one of those arguments for growing potatoes above ground in something you can just open up and have them fall out. So it doesn't say that they wouldn't be yellow and perhaps beginning to keel over at this point, too, because it's that time of year. They should be getting done. Garlic, too, actually should be about ready. Oh, so many things. We've got, I'm not going to say this, but Gerard, you'll have to go back and read the text. No, they're all very kind.
I do this to him all the time.
They're all very kind.
He's quadruple G to me, man.
Well, that's who he is today.
I might even find a Cinco G. Find another G
we'll
for
think
Gerard.
of it. If we can't say gorgeous, that wouldn't be appropriate. But we'll work on it. Thanks for listening, y'all. This is the Garden Mama Show. Y'all have the best texts. I'm doubled over with laughter from some of this. I'm reading. You all send texts to various and sundry programs, and that tickles me. I'm very happy to tell you that yes, indeed, you can harvest that garlic, Lyman. It's going to seed, and the pods are folding over. It's time to dig it up and see what you got. And I think that confirms what I was saying about potatoes and garlic. In toward the end of May, we really want to see that we can get them going before we end up having a problem with the heat. Because the heat brings the bugs, and the bugs bring the problems, and the whole thing.
I thought that was the right song.
Goes sideways.
I felt like that the song this week.
As one who is fond of both baseball and insects, it's one of my very favorite tunes.
Yeah, I've kind of felt like that song this week. I kept going to myself. I know that I don't remember the name. I know it has bug in it, and that's the one though. Sometimes you feel like a Louisville Slugger.
That's right. And sometimes you're the ball.
Sometimes you're the ball. I've kind of felt that way, swatting myself all week.
That's it.
Well, we have Mark, Heated Pool, Peaches, Patrick. He is loaded up, ready to go, out and about. And there's a dog barking, too. So
that's nice.
He's got
like
all kinds of stuff going on.
Hey, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. What's going on today?
Wow. It's kind of chilly out this morning.
Isn't that nice? I have on the T-shirt from the founder and Bottletree Garden Tour, and I thought, this could be a long sleeve shirt today, but not next week. So,
Yeah, I know, right?
Really nice.
I am currently sitting at a beautiful walking trail in Rankin County.
Nice.
And there's people everywhere.
Pretty
and
good.
The Behalia is just happy.
I bet. It better be.
Man,
if it's not doing well
rain?
now, that foot. I'm telling you, I got a foot in my house. I don't know. It was at 11.77 or something Thursday, and I feel sure that I got the rest of it. So.
Oh yeah.
How accurate are those?
Definitely.
Well, the gauges that they run at the airport and those the weather station type things. I pay attention to a neighbor of mine that actually has a weather station at her house, and that's where I look at my stuff, but I pay attention to people that actually do the math.
We have a pretty large rain gauge, and when you get beyond the overflow valve in the pool, it's been substantial. I don't even have to look.
Yeah. And, of course, there are places in this world that wish we could be capturing all of this water, and we do capture some of it even if we don't want to. But, oh, my goodness, if there was ever an argument for a rain barrel in everybody's yard, this is it. This spring has been.
I'm telling you.
You know what starts tomorrow, huh?
Hurricane season.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now,
everybody.
You have to. There's some of us who have to. There's some of us who have to batten down some hatches. There's some of us who just have to prepare the bedrooms for the evacuees. There are also other folks, of course, who have never experienced this particular time of year and don't realize that even 2 or 3 hours from the coast, you need to tie stuff down if you're putting it in your yard. If you got a swing set, you don't need that toppled over next September. Go ahead and make sure that you've got things anchored the way they should be, because things that fly around in high winds, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane, can cause you problems, cause your neighbors problems, and frankly break up all your stuff. So this is a good time to get out and do those kind of tasks. What else should we be doing?
Oh, man. Just clean up the yard, get ready, have those batteries ready, those candles, all that stuff,
I'm fond of
us who...
Yeah, go ahead.
Those of us who, experienced things like Katrina, and it's the 20th anniversary of Katrina, and I wish I had been better prepared when that happened, and I'm sure a lot of other people wish they had been also.
It was such a surprise to have, 80, 90, 100 mile an hour winds in the central part of Mississippi and the northern part of Louisiana. It was a big surprise to a lot of us.
I was in a greenhouse.
Good thing you weren't in mine. It blew up.
Greenhouse. Holding on for dear life,
Yeah.
And it was full of moms.
But we really do hope that we all hope for a lesser season than a higher season. But the good news is that if you have dealt with the water hazards on your property, for example, you don't have places like I do that hold water even beyond where they should. You have to be able to make sure things drain, make sure you're not going to set up any hazards that way, make sure that if you've got trees that need to be trimmed, you trim them, my friends, because those limbs are going to be hazardous. Yeah. And, of course, anything that you put out in the way of art or structures or things like that, please tie them down. It doesn't take but about an 80-mile-an-hour wind to flip over a shed. You don't need that.
I know, right?
You don't need that.
Yeah. So, that's just a few things, and mosquito season, boy, oh, boy.
Yes, this is when everybody smells like sunscreen and insect repellent. It's a lovely, heady combination.
Yes. And it's funny. I'm going to share this with everybody. I asked Nellie, everyone, if it was appropriate to hand out mosquito spray for a party favor.
And I think it is. I think it's extremely,
Is there an alternative? I cannot do the sprays. I sweat
wristbands
and all that.
Wristbands.
Wristbands.
Okay. I put them around my ankles, too.
Don't
tell anybody. I don't think I'm supposed to do that.
I sit outside a lot. I know Mark's outside a lot. I know you are. And I truly hate mosquitoes. I don't mind little gnats as much, I don't
like anything biting on me.
Yeah, but the mosquitoes, they're brutal. And so you're saying the little bands you can
those
put
are
on, buy them in a 20-pack.
I think it's Pickardin. I think is the name of the chemical. But it's different, and it has worked real well for me. Mm-hmm. I know that there are a lot of folks that would disagree with that, but it works for me.
They're kind of fashionable too. I mean, they're usually in bright green.
That's right.
I've seen them and just don't realize it.
Yes, that's right. People are wearing them and you don't even know. But it does help. If we're not, I don't know, put something on your head, for example, because if your hair is particularly nice smelling or the products that you have are attractive to mosquitoes, I understand that wearing a hat or putting a scarf on can really make a difference there. So that helps.
Yeah, I've had to sit outside in long sleeves and long pants and lightweight stuff. But yeah, they really like the hair. They like the hair.
Yes, they do. They really do. Well, Mark, I don't know how to tell you this, but this is in fact National Speak in Complete Sentences Day, and I decided that we have violated it every day of our lives. But today we're trying to put nouns and verbs together and speak in complete sentences, and you've done a beautiful job of that. So thank you.
She's being nice.
Well, thank you. Y'all have a great rest of the show.
All right, now.
And
leave us one
I'm
good
gonna
tip.
Get busy.
Give us one good tip. What are you about to go do?
I am about to go finish mulching around my bed in the pool, around the pool.
That's so
And I'm
smart.
going to pine bark.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of controversy about pine bark, but pine bark, one thing it does is mosquitoes, it tends to dry out faster, and mosquitoes don't hang out in it as bad
That's true.
as other things.
That's true.
And it's easier to keep it out of the pool.
Well, that's very important at your house.
It is very important. I'm going to do that, and I'm about to plant some cucumber seeds.
Well, I look forward to the results of that. My goodness. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a busy day. See you later.
Have a good day.
Bye. You know, one of the things that is very, very true, if you have not mulched, at this point where there is everything has been well watered, you will be so happy in a month if you go ahead and mulch now. It's not to say that you won't have to water at some point or that the rain won't be helpful, but you will be able to keep that soil as moist as it has been. So for things like this, this is so beautiful. I love when things follow up from segment to segment. We now have the chicken wire notion, but it's keeping the cats out of the clematis. That is so pretty. And there's purple coneflowers, and it looks like rudbeckia also blooming in there, and a beautiful rosemary plant. So it's a lovely, lovely scene.
Yeah, my cats love getting in the beds and like making house. They just get in. They don't eat anything. They just nestle around and get it to where it's their little spot.
And then they sit on top of whatever they want to sit on top of. And since the cats don't bloom, we lose a few flowers here and there.
I wonder.
I have to say that blue gnome in that picture is just tickling me. I should have sent that other. I have another gnome.
Watching the cat scratch himself on the rose bushes is really comical.
Let's put everything to work.
Yeah, no, that's
we have a question.
Pad.
Does vanilla and water mix work for mosquito repellent? Doesn't for me.
Sounds too delicious.
But so I don't know if anybody does that. If anybody does that, people put that in coffee.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd put on some food.
A little bit of maybe a little prosecco and some ginger. You know,
I was a bartender.
We'll put you to work.
Yeah, you come up. You give me a garden to work with, and a liquor of your choice. I'll blow your mind. I love the.
All right, sounds like a dare. I'm there.
I love
I'm ready.
The blending of teas and plants and all of the different little things like lemongrass and it stirs. It makes such a difference.
See, there's that lemon balm. Another use for that.
Makes such a difference in what you're doing. Just on a Saturday, if you want just a light cocktail. If you've got something in your yard that you've been growing, the mint that's fresh, the lemongrass. I love using those things.
It makes
the rosemary.
such a difference.
Take a rosemary and stir it. It just adds
a little something
different to it. And it really does bring out, you can change the same thing 5 different times with a different garnish.
And by the way, your guests will think you're a genius. So that doesn't hurt either. Ken has a brand new fern. And the question is what to do with indoor ferns. He's not had one before. I really would like to treat them in almost the same way that I do the outdoor ferns, which is to say water them really, really well once a week. Let the water run out the bottom of the pot, or put the pot, if you have the space to do that, put it into a bucket of water or a pan of water and let it draw up all that it possibly can. Do that about once a week. Give it diffuse light. A little indoor fern does not need a great deal, certainly no direct sun. So go ahead and let that happen, okay?
We have a great question from Mike in Greenville, and I'm actually very interested to hear your response on this. And Mike, you're up.
Good morning, Greenville. Hey, Mike. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Garden Mama.
Hey.
What's your secret to keep my lab from digging in my flower beds?
Oh, dear. Well, you know what? I don't have one. I'll tell you what people tell me. And it sort of worked when I had a Samoyed that had that. But long walks far away from the garden are really wear the dog out. In other words, I would play fetch with my Samoyed until she fell down and started panting, and then I could go garden because she would come with me and get into everything. So I don't have an answer. I know that some Labradors don't like stuff that's spicy smelling, but I don't think that is necessarily universal. In other words, spraying the plants with red pepper isn't going to necessarily make any difference, but it might. And unfortunately, it's a matter of exclusion, just like it is, for mosquitoes or anything else. We don't have a good answer for that. So you may have to get up and go on longer walks.
I'll add to this. I have a female lab, and she's a digger, and so I know what you're dealing with.
They are.
Well, I've tilled up, certain areas away from the flower bed so he could dig in that, but it doesn't help.
Oh, see, you would think it would.
What I've learned a little bit watching my lab is if she thinks there's a mole or a vole or something that may be in the flower bed or underground anywhere,
anything intriguing,
anything intriguing. To me, it could be a frog or whatever. But if she gets a whiff of that, and being a hunting dog,
I wish I knew
thinks
the
it's her
answer to
job.
this question.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to break her. I try everything I've used. Pepper, the apple spray, and all that.
Yep, all
She's
that stuff.
You can't predict where it's going next. If you spray here, they're going to go over there. So I'm with you. If you figure something out, you let me know.
We could make a fortune if we could we could find something. But thank you for calling today. I wish I knew the answer.
Well, I was going to tell you, I heard you talking about the deer, the lady having the deer problems.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine built an archway out of PVC pipe and over her garden and wrapped it with chicken wire, and that kept the animals out of it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on the right track with that part. I really do think that exclusion of the plants themselves is probably the biggest thing, because the flowers are usually what the deer are after. Sometimes they'll eat entire plants, but they're usually after your flowers.
Right.
Thanks for the tip. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thank you much. Good to hear from you. When do you divide daylilies? I love that question, because daylilies are a plant just like our other spring blooming perennials that if you read, classic garden advice, it'll tell you to divide in the season opposite of bloom, which would of course be fall. And you might get a chance to do that here. On the other hand, fall might be hotter than spring. Fall might be wetter. Fall might be a hurricane. So with daylilies, it's going to be dig them and divide them when the weather's pleasant for you and after they finish blooming. That's about the basis of that one. I'll have more to say about that and so many other things when we come back. This is the Garden Mama Show. We all hope she found it. Actually, we hope she didn't. We hope she stayed a while. What a great song.
I love that song. It's appropriate, too, because the turnip greens on the back of the truck.
Seriously.
'Tis the
It's
season.
going to pull you over every time. I defy you to drive past a truck full of turnips. Come on. Now,
I've seen the watermelon trucks
Pyrenees.
out, too.
Laura and I are looking at I'm looking at Laura's beautiful dog, Great Pyrenees. Beautiful dog. Really pretty. Beautiful black-eyed Susans, too. We're admiring both ends of that particular spectrum. Now, let's see. Is this black walnut stump? I don't know. But the bark does not look ridged enough to me to be black walnut. But that's not necessarily true. Walnuts and hickories, my goodness, those barks are not that far apart. Each one is distinct in its own world, but I can't tell you just from looking at the stump what it is. I'm sorry. It looks. If it was a crepe myrtle stump, I might be able to tell you because that's pretty distinct. But this one is. There are too many that can look this way, and it doesn't look. It's not quite deep enough of a bark for for me to think that it's that. Okay. I wish it was. Yep, dividing daylilies. I'm serious. Do this when it feels good. You may dig them up, and you may not even replant them until another day. Maybe wait for it to rain or something. But they're tougher than they look for the most part. And I would really like to say that you could do that in the spring, in the fall without any trouble. You probably can. But I have to also tell you that some daylilies are deciduous. So if you wait too long in the fall, they've lost all their leaves, and you may not get the whole clump. I will tell you that a foot of water is not too much, it turns out, for some of the daylilies in my garden. There's one blooming that I haven't seen bloom in 5 years. I haven't seen bloom since probably the drought summer, and I thought it was gone. But it turned out to be absolutely beautiful. So maybe I'll divide that one. I don't know. Now, you can always also think about this. You may want to dig up a little piece of the daylily if it has several different clumps in the group, and get that into a container so that you know your process is going to go well if you have any concerns about the daylilies themselves. But I think they're pretty easy. The garlic harvest is going on, as we talked about. And this is an interesting question. I had to look up into the back end of this one to see where this email got sent. If you send me an email, write this down on your hand, on a notepad, or as someone we used to know said, perhaps on a piece of fine furniture so you don't lose it. mamaonair@yahoo.com. This one went to an email that I haven't looked at in a very long time because it got spammed. So the question is, it's a good question. My Louisiana iris won't bloom. Now, I'm going to tell you, Ona, here's the thing. You haven't ever fertilized them, and they don't bloom. Most of the time, that's the answer. But now's really not the time to do it. Now's when they would actually be blooming. They start growing, of course, in the late summer, early fall. And so at this point, since yours have not bloomed, it wouldn't hurt to give them some fertilizer, but as a routine, you want to fertilize them when they first appear in late summer. Then sometimes people will go ahead and come back in and say March and feed them again just to be sure the flowers have nice strong stems. But that's usually the problem. If they are so tightly packed because they've grown so much, they've gotten so dense, you may need to dig and divide them. But Louisianas can usually be a little bit more crowded than some other kinds of iris, such as bearded, and still go ahead and bloom. But I would suggest that yours, since they have full sun and they're obviously getting plenty of water, I would suggest that we need to give them the opportunity to get some fertilizer. They just don't have what they need to put on those flower buds. Crowding is one problem, and lack of fertilizer is the other. Spurge control, that is so hard. Oh, my goodness. Is there a way to get rid of spurge in the yard, a granular formula that I can put out or a spray? There are certainly that. You'd have to go to the co-op or the garden center and tell them, if you don't know, take a piece of the lawn itself and the spurge so that they're clear about what kind of lawn you have and what you need to control. Spurge is related to euphorbias. When you crush it, it has a little bit of it is a euphorbia. It has a little bit of white latex in those stems, and that tells you that this plant is drought tolerant. So if you have a spurge problem, generally speaking, the underlying cause is that the lawn's not getting enough water. That particular area is very dry and can't sustain. So sometimes it's a twofer. Sometimes it's a really good indicator of what the problem is. For example, you'll see sometimes there'll be a sidewalk and there'll be a nice lawn on either side, but right up next to the sidewalk there'll be spurge. And it doesn't seem to invade too far out into the lawn. Well, usually that's because there's white grubs underneath there, and then they're literally eating the roots of the grass and dehydrating by taking the liquid out of the soil itself. And of course, because sidewalks get heat from the sun, it also transfers, and that area is a little bit warmer than the rest of your yard. So sometimes you can tell that the spurge is there because the situation is such, and you can remedy that by watering it and giving the lawn itself a little more attention just in that area. But yes, there are sprays that will control it. It's just not going to solve the problem underlying the spurge issue. I like spurge, frankly, as, I don't know, the ground cover in the gravel in my driveway. I mean, I don't mind it, but I certainly don't want it in the lawn or in other places where the things are that I'm trying to grow, my desirable plants. All right, now here there's, y'all are great. This is so much fun. Our blueberries are coming in. Yay! Oh, Kathy, why do some have more seeds in them than others? Don't I wish I knew? I've been picking from 2 different varieties this week. My very earliest one, and then a little bit later one that's already started up. And yeah, sometimes they're different. This huge amount of water this month has meant that many of mine are bigger and have more seeds in them. That's true, and then that's why I'm intending to cook. They're okay for eating fresh, they're good, but I think the next couple of pickings will be better for that. So I'm going to go ahead and cook these into something. But oh, how much I love my blueberries! Ooh wee! Oh, how beautiful!
It is the season, and you gave us a bunch last year.
Mm-hmm. You'll see.
My mother loves them in her afternoon toddy. So as you
see,
anytime you want to.
Her son's a bartender. What are you going to do? I mean,
she loves the blueberries. I think that's the favorite part of it, honestly. When she gets down the bottom, she goes, "Oh, those blueberries are just sitting there waiting for me."
They're so delicious. Well, and the other thing about blueberries, of course, it's not that we're going to only talk about alcohol, but when they are steeped in something, the skin gets a little softer, and so they become a little bit easier to eat.
I love making blueberry syrup.
And that's, of course, the
good.
boil down. Yeah.
Such a good.
And I'm not going to talk to you about the nutritional benefits of it, but I can tell you that if you boil it too hard, it's not going to be as sweet. So that'll slow you down.
Yeah.
You know.
I would always take do a half and half water sugar.
Yeah,
get it good and warm.
That'll get it there.
And
yeah.
just absolutely overload a nice pan full of blueberries and let them get soft and mash them and press them and get all the good stuff out, and then strain them through a cheesecloth about 10 times.
And we will all be over for drinks.
my favorite is blackberry. That's the
fun.
prettiest of all of them.
It's a beautiful color.
But the blueberry, when you make a great syrup out of it, me personally, I would keep it dark as far as the purplish color.
Yeah.
You're going to get so much flavor out of that. But it's a great way to preserve your blueberries too, if you have that mindset. Well, like, I got a bazillion of them. What do I do with all these? I can't even give them all away. Go make you a syrup out of it. Put it in the refrigerator.
Syrup's real powerful. It's fun, and I'll tell you what else. I'm
put it on your salads and everything.
I'm gonna leave them frozen and just take them out a handful at a time. The berries themselves. I'll do that too.
Freeze some, make a little syrup, eat fresh, but they're amazing.
So many things to do, and don't forget, lemon is really a good enhancer for blueberries. I like that. All right, so much more to do this morning. Sonny, that's a magnificent, beautiful, beautiful flower. I don't know the name of the rose, but I'm sure glad it came back for you. Now we're going to step away. We've got a whole lot to do in the next hour, and your phone calls, your texts, always, and we'll be talking some more about the Fondren Bottletree Tour here on the Garden Mama Show. I'm feeling pinchy this morning. You know why that is? You might not know why that is. There are some plants that frankly will get to be over your head and give you a lot of trouble later in the season if you're not pinching them now. The classic that we think about in the South is Clara Curtis mums. I have said forever that Clara Curtis is the absolute blousiest girl that ever was. If you don't really take a little effort to give her a little control, she's going to get to be 5 feet tall with a small flower on top that will absolutely weigh the whole branch down. They'll fall over onto your shrubs, onto your lawn, and not really be a plant that you'd like to have at your house. Well, you can fix that. Clara Curtis mums, and you do this with other mums as well, but Clara Curtis is probably our best example. Clara Curtis is going to need to be pinched now. And then if you want to, if she puts on 2 or 3 more sets of leaves in June, you can pinch again, but you need to stop at the beginning of July. And so you have a month now to remember to pinch those plants. The same is true, really, of several other things. But the Joe Pye weed, for example, is one of those things that will bloom up over your head, but you can put the blooms at eye level simply by pinching the plants a little bit. It's a really good idea. We talked last week with Jesse about the sunflowers, the helianthus, that's the big, tall, bushy sunflower that's perennial, is also a real good one to pinch. But there's a couple of other reasons to pinch. Early on, I've discovered that there are plants for which flowers means no more leaves, and for that reason we pinch out the flowers of caladiums, for example. We pinch off the flowers of basil and coleus and other members of the mint family if we're not looking for those flowers, because we really want to have more leaves. Same is true of the elephant ears and that whole bunch of things that we grow strictly for their leaves, caladiums, and all of the various and sundry kinds of elephant ears. Really does make a big difference. In a nutshell, pinching is to use your fingernails and take the growing tip out of something. In the case of the flowers on a caladium, you want to take the whole little stem that has put up the flower. And in the case of the Clara Curtis mums, if they're already 2 feet tall, you're going to need to pinch a little bit more than just the tip in order to control that growth. But for plants like the basil that you would be having, regular pinching will create lots and lots of stems that produce lots and lots of leaves. And frankly, if you're tired of your coleus having only one stalk, the same thing is true of it. Pinch that thing whether or not it needs it for the flower purpose, but just so that it can make more and more leaves. So I'm feeling kind of pinchy. I think it's a good day for all of that. Real good question left from the previous hour, and that's about only having male squash flowers, no females yet. And we see both sides of that equation. Usually it's the first bloom that goes one direction or the other. People will give you ideas about what to do about it, and maybe sometimes some of those will work. But on the other hand, if you just wait for the second flush of flowers, you generally will get the other set of flowers. Now, if for instance you only have one or two male flowers and a whole bunch of female flowers, you can do the pollinating yourself if you need to, and the same is true in reverse. If you've got one male flower and a whole bunch of females, then of course you're going to take that paintbrush and do a little bit. You're going to be the bee, as we say around here, and move the pollen from one place to the other. It's important to understand that this is the time when they should be getting pollinated. So if you only have one kind of flower, maybe you need to fertilize the plants and get some more blooms going. See about that, okay? Try that. That's really fun. We've also got Ron from Ocean Springs always has to give us some idea. This is really fun. He says, swirling those fresh picked berries in 1 part white vinegar and 10 parts water to keep them fresh longer. I don't do that, but I have heard of it. Wonder if that would work on bananas. I don't think so. In fact, I had a banana to bring to work this morning, and it was a little bit too far gone to put in my bag, so I left it, and I'll have to turn it. It'll be a pancake tomorrow or something. But we really do have. That's always the question: is the peach ripe today or is it gone tomorrow? You know, are those berries going to be good enough to keep? And frankly, when I freeze blueberries, I do sometimes find the added advantage, because I don't put them in vinegar or don't wash them at all. I do grow completely organically, so that's part of the joy of being able to do that. I don't have to rinse off any pesticides because there aren't any, all right? But it does mean that a few little stems will end up in the freezer, and when you take the berries out, you don't have to pull them off at all. The stems will fall right off. So I like that.
Well, speaking of pesticides, you saw the text from one of our listeners about crop dusting, and you have the picture up now.
Yeah, it's
I've been sprayed by that stuff. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel good about myself.
I don't know how to tell you this. When I was a child, we didn't know any better. That was a long time ago. And we laid in between the rows in the cotton fields by my house and waved at the planes. And they fortunately had sense enough to pull up a little bit, you know, but I'm sure we all were coated in whatever in the world it was they were spraying at the time.
You were immune.
I don't know. You know, this may be a time bomb. We don't really know about these things. There's too many things we don't know. But I went to my first year of college at a place where they taught people how to fly airplanes for crop dusting. So we had a few really fun adventure rides. Yeah.
I've been up in a couple of those. Those are fun.
Whew, my goodness.
Especially when you go under the
power
electrical
lines.
lines, and then there's a tree line 100 yards in front of you, and you go,
yeah.
in your pilot.
And you say to yourself, how well do I know this person?
I knew him he was American Airlines pilot too, but you know, it's not like flying.
These were college students, okay? We were not. This was not smart,
Well,
but
no,
we had a good time. They knew what they were doing. Most of these guys had already flown for 2 or 3 years before they ever got to college, because they came from families. You know,
that's the way this
they
was
were trying to
farming,
get. They were trying to get certified to
farm and crop dusting family, and
sure.
they all did professions in the real airline world where you had passengers, the big planes. So yeah, my worry was always like, yeah, you've been flying those big heavy ones, but how often are you flying this thing?
Yeah,
Oh, don't worry about it.
this?
Don't worry about it. We got this.
Well, I probably come by my sense of adventure logically. I did have an uncle who was a wing walker, one of those people that would get out and walk on the wings. Barnstormers, yeah. So
that's crazy.
I have pictures.
Yeah. I'd do it with a parachute, but yeah, some of those guys would do it
Not
just
them.
like in their suit and
they got on
their
khakis
floor chimes and everything.
You know, looks like fancy boots. You know, I mean, it's crazy. Let's see. My oregano. This is Kathy. Hey, Kathy. My oregano came back last year with all this rain. It sure has. It's gotten huge with flowers all over it. Should I cut it back or dig it up and plant a new one? I have some of the same. My thyme always blooms at this point in the year, and this year the oregano blooms a little bit later. I like to harvest then. I'm taking those stems and I'm going to do something with them. I'll either make an oil or I'll make some kind of a marinade and put it in my freezer for later on. But the beauty of this is that these herbs are in great shape, and the plants will just come right back along and grow some more. You can certainly move it if you need to, But if you want to leave it where it is, just go ahead and harvest it and put those leaves to work, and you'll find that you got probably just as many grown back at this point. This was a really good question about the garlic harvest we seem to be having so many about. I love this. They strung them on a line, and the kitchen smelled like garlic. Yes, it would do that. Should she braid them? I like to braid the garlic. The picture that we're looking at SuperTalk.tv is a wheelbarrow of just beautiful amount of garlic in it with nice long stems, long leaves, and really pretty cloves. So I would certainly do some braiding. And I find that is an easier way. You don't have to have quite as many. It's not quite as large an area because if you braid them, you're putting several together, so you can use it in less of a space. And I have been known to put the garlic that was drying in various closets and things. I'm not sure what it did for or against the smell of the clothing, but it did well for the garlic. And I didn't notice that the clothes had any big problem. But what a great question, though. Hey, Paula, good morning. I hope that everything is going well for everybody today. Yeah, that crop dust and that damage. I will tell you, when I got a little bit older and went on a couple of adventures to try and diagnose some problems, sometimes it is not possible to get past that damage. And I hate that for you because it sometimes is even tough on things like, shrubs and trees, but certainly on what looks like either cucumbers or squash, it's gonna have an effect. That is for sure. Well, today, my friends, is Parrot Day. And I learned a new word today. I learned that there are actually 402 species of parrots. How do you get to 402? Why don't they say about 400? No, there's 402. We know all of their names. And the word for parrot comes from Latin it's Greek to start with, but it comes to us through Latin. P-S-I-T-T-A-C-I-N-E-S. Sounds like something that would be a Star Trek character, Maybe I have a wonderful. I looked at it and I said, I've not seen this word before. Sure enough, I had not seen this word before. A lot of times, P-S in English ends up being pronounced with an S, and in this case that is true. Citizen or citizen. Yes, like gin sake. That's exactly right. And so the idea of this whole word is because that's the word for parrot in Latin. Sometimes we get pretty clever with our species names. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we go directly to that word, and that's where the parrot word came from. But yes, there are 402 of them.
I love it when people go, there's about 402. Like, no, there's 402.
Well,
about,
and the psychology of that. A specific number hangs in your head a whole lot more than the other, and so the contradiction of saying about 400 and about very specific.
It's around 212.
Is very confusing for your brain, and you don't remember either number at that point. So that's why
you get what I'm saying.
Oh, sure I do. That's exactly the point. Is that if somebody wants to distract you, if they're guessing. There's 402, and they say it with authority, you're going to think there's 402. But if they say there's about 402, your brain doesn't know how to react to that.
Well, my question on the parrots would be, well, you think there's 402, but obviously there's probably another one somewhere.
Couldn't there be 404?
406, somewhere up in those mountains.
Somewhere up there. So that's kind of fun, really, really fun stuff. There you go. Oh, my goodness, Ron in Ocean Springs sent us a picture of his crop duster.
Where is that?
There it is. Air Tractor AT802, I think it is, in Arkansas.
That's a
Let's
beauty.
Go. I'm ready.
That's a beauty.
I would take my chances again. I take my chances
I'll
with
go
Ron.
Right, I'll go up with a crop duster. Those guys know what they're doing. I mean, they've seen everything. They've buzzed the trees, gone under the lines, landed in fields,
seen all the people,
done everything, waved at everybody. They know where everything is. We actually went up in a crop duster to go find where the ducks were. Like, where are the ducks? We know they're around. We keep hearing everybody. You can fly around. And,
Where'd they go? Yeah, that makes sense.
We know the people who own that land.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
The bird's eye view for catching birds does help.
Well, and I know this is, it's one of the coolest things in farming that I know about is the drone that's able to tell you which part of your field needs water and what doesn't. Yeah. So it's that same point of view that says if we can see it from a higher perspective, we can understand better what's going on. Oh, look, there are the ducks.
Yeah,
you know?
That makes such a good point. I had a concept about a year or two ago, about 2 years ago, thinking the same way you're thinking right there, where, well, if a bird's flying, the way they see things down below is not how we see things looking up. So our mindset of camouflage is basically what we see, you know, how we envision. But when you look at it,
they could be laughing.
Yeah, they're looking at us going, "I see you down there. You're sticking out like a sore thumb." But no, that brings on that question. I thought about this last year, sitting in the duck blind, going, "Where are the ducks?" And I'm going, I wish I'd had one of those $22 little drones.
Send that little drone up
fly it up, go buzz a few, and send them my way. You're wondering when that will actually happen, though, when you can start herding things where you want it and using technology. Curious. Yeah.
And that makes me think of the sheepdogs launching drones.
Right. The sheepdog, instead of doing it, he's just going to sit back with his
flock,
phone.
You know?
Yeah.
I love that. It could happen. I'm not going to say it's not.
Deep thoughts.
I learned something else this week. You know, I'm a coconut fan. I like coconut. And I have lived around folks in my life that really think it's poison, don't like coconut at all. So I'm always intrigued when I find out something else about coconut. And in this particular case, today is macaroon day, not macaron, macaroon day. And macaroon is not a macaroon without some coconut in it. They are two different desserts, two different meringue things. But if you have... You've been waiting on that.
Yeah, we're not going to break. We had to put the widespread coconut.
You've just been waiting on that.
Because you love coconut.
I do.
I love coconuts, too. I don't know if I've ever had it in a form that I didn't enjoy it, but they had these puffs back here, like in a bucket.
Oh, okay.
They were coconut. It looked like cornbread. So I walked by them for like 4 days and going, I don't want any cornbred. And I saw Bob popping them, or it might have been Caleb. I said, why are you eating cornbread at like 8 in the morning? Or no? That's not cornbread, man. Those are coconut puffs. And that was like the last one. I'm like, come on, man. I walked by this 5 days.
Well, and of course, the macaroon is an American chewy kind of coconut cookie, and they're usually round. They're not, they're not usually flat. Sometimes they are, but usually they're not. Usually they're more like pick it up like that, and they're just a different treat than the fancy French macaron, which is sometimes coconut flavored and sometimes not.
Our favorite pastry baker. If y'all haven't been, go
Good morning, Guillermo.
You want to go see Guillermo.
Go to Just Vanilla.
I sent a couple of pictures to a couple of people the other day going, "This is our local bakery." I thought I heard the chair flop over behind him. What? Oh my God! So, yeah.
We're so fortunate.
Yeah, we are.
We know some folks that can do some stuff.
Well, it's so pretty too. They got the fresh fruits on things, and I mean, really it's just such a beautiful display of talent and deliciousness all in one.
Yes,
it really is.
The famous story at my house is the pecan pie doesn't look good, but it tastes all right. This is so the other side of the world on this. This is stuff you can take pictures of because you don't want to eat it, and then you want to eat it.
Well, and the chocolates too, the little cordial.
Those are so cute.
I mean, they're so beautiful. They're like
beautiful things, lovely gifts.
If you love flowers and you love beautiful things, you're missing out if you don't run in there or
Just Vanilla in Dooling Hall in Bowling.
And hey, they're not a sponsor. We just love them that much.
No, we just go to see them as often as we can. One of the things that we love to do in this world is talk to folks that are doing stuff. So today we're going to talk to Sophie Wolf. She and her husband Paul have a great garden. It is on the Bottletree Garden Tour in Fondren coming up in June the 14th. But she's got some other stuff to talk about. She's done one of the things that I really, if I had a bucket list, it would be on my bucket list. So we'll talk to her. But we're going to come back and take your phone calls, be a little bit crazy, because this is Saturday morning here on the Garden Mama Show. Ah, yes. We got green onions. We got creeping onions. We got running onions. We got falling over and growing upon themselves walking onions. My house has got shallots. I got they're all doing beautifully well. They're all trying to start to bloom. And I guess I need to start making scallion pancakes every day or something because it's just been a beautiful spring for the onion market. Now, guess what's coming up? I've told you about the T-shirt. I've told you about all these things that are happening, but right now we're going to get a chance to talk to somebody whose garden is featured at the Bottletree Garden Tour in Fondren coming up on really, believe it or not, how fast this is happening. It's already June tomorrow, and on June the 14th, the Bottletree Garden Tour will kick off. I want you all to make sure that you go and visit with Sophie and Paul Wolf, but this is Sophie that you're going to talk with this morning. I'll tell you about Paul in a minute. We'll put Sophie first. Good morning, Sophie.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to talk about you, and I hope I make you blush. Sophie is a fantastic gardener. Sophie has transformed. You know, when you get a house and you decide you want to make the garden be more like you, it can be an endless series of projects like mine, or it can actually have a plan to it like Sophie's and come out to something entirely different. Your garden is just beautiful. Sophie and Paul Wolf are Fondren folks. If you had a chance last year to listen to Paul's podcast, which you should be listening to all the time, of course, he's with Visit Jackson. He interviewed me for the Fondren Bottletree Tour. I think he should be interviewing you this week. I'm putting up pictures at SuperTalk.tv, and your raised beds are magnificent. Sophie, tell me about it.
It's a labor of love.
Well, and I can see that it is paying off, too. Y'all, you need to know, Sophie is also a Metro Master Gardener, so there's some information about the sale. And Sophie has done something that I have been invited to do and haven't done, and really hope that one day I will, but I don't know if I will. She's worked on the Rose Bowl parade. Come on, y'all. Now, that's the ultimate for garden folks, for flower people. Oh, my goodness, Sophie. We'll talk about that on another whole day. But talk to me about your garden and what you want people to see when they come to the tour on the 14th.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that it's just, it's always a new phase of the garden. When we bought our house, my dad looked at it and said, well, this will be a lifetime of projects. And it certainly has been. We're always reimagining things. And actually, a couple years ago, we had a tree from a neighbor. I'm sure all of you probably run into this, especially if you're in Fondren. We got a lot of trees, but they're getting old.
Yeah,
but fell
true.
during a hurricane, and it actually gave us kind of a blank slate, really, because it wiped out two sides of our backyard and,
oh my goodness,
and a whole heck of a lot more sun than we had before. And I have wanted raised beds for years, and we finally said, all right, this is the year. We're going to do it.
We have to do something. We may as well do what we want,
Exactly,
yes.
yeah, and especially having all that sun, we wanted to take advantage of it. We did everything ourselves. I think that's what's going to be so awesome about this tour is you're going to see a wide range of homes from, folks that have landscape architects who've done some amazing things to the DIY gardeners, which I always have a soft spot for the DIY gardener. We did it all ourselves, built those raised beds. It's amazing how they can pack it and ship it to you, and it's small. It's all these little panels. You just screw them together, put it all together. I put in our drip irrigation, which I kind of affectionately tell people it's like doing adult Legos. It really is just connecting pieces and parts and putting it together. But, yeah, it has been such a gift because it gives all year. I run a garden year-round, so there's, of course, summer crops right now, but, about July, August, I'll actually start working on some fall veggies. Last year I had a ton of broccoli and all kinds of other things, kale, and, it's amazing what you can do in the garden. And, if you just go by what's in the garden centers, you might get confused. I think that's one of the biggest things is just learning the seasons of the year and what can grow. I used to get so frustrated thinking that in Mississippi you couldn't grow cilantro. Well, it's because I was buying the pot from the garden center in May, which is the opposite of when you need to be doing it.
Yes.
Now I grow cilantro from seed, and, if you put it out there in September, man, you're going to have some pretty great cilantro until about May.
It is such a great tip. It's the same is true for parsley, of course, because there are people that will tell you can't grow that here. Well, that's because they haven't grown it at the right time. Well, and I'll grant you, we don't necessarily think of parsley and cilantro like we think of pansies, but we should because they all really do go into that same time. When I first got to Mississippi, I was informed that you plant collard greens after you plant mustard greens because you want the weather to get cold on the collard greens. They'll taste better, but you don't want it to get cold on the mustard greens because they'll get bitter. Well, it turns out that's true. It was a great piece of advice that I wouldn't have gotten except from somebody who was growing them themselves. And that really is, as you say, what people are going to find when they come to the garden tour. They're going to get to talk to you. Now, you also are going to provide some information from Cooperative Extension about the Master Gardener program. Tell me about that.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to have a table there. We're actually going to have Susan Carson, who's a fellow Master Gardener with me. She's going to be there at the table. I've also invited all the other folks from Hinds County. So, you may have some folks, they're probably going to be on the tour. They're just as interested as anybody else. But, I told them if they want to hang out at the table and answer questions, but we'll have plenty of literature. I've ordered a lot of different topics. So we'll have some different booklets and things, particularly around growing vegetables and, creating your own landscape at home by yourself. Just if you have not been to MSU Extension's website, they are just a wealth of information about anything to do with growing.
It's msucares.com.
I just have to encourage you to go and look at that.
msucares.com. They have a great search engine.
I know, and I tell people all the time, you really, if you're going to Google, if you have a question about a certain plant, always type in whenever that plant is in Mississippi. And, generally an MSU Extension article is going to be at the top, and that's what you need to be reading to really understand what's happening.
One by Garden Mama. So those are in there.
Hey, absolutely.
Those are in there, too. I'm happy to say there's a lifetime of information that we don't take advantage of as much as we should. So that's what's so delightful about it. Talk to me just for a moment about going to the Rose Bowl parade because I can't stand it. I'm so happy that you went. The pictures were lovely, and I know you and Paul had a great time. But how did that happen? How in the world do you get to go?
Well, like you mentioned, Paul works for Visit Jackson, and the Visit Jackson and some other tourism organizations from cities around Mississippi partnered with Visit Mississippi to have Mississippi's first float in quite a while. Some were saying it's the first. I think it's the first of many years. And so we were lucky enough to go to Pasadena right after Christmas and go up there. And part of it was that we got to really assemble the float. And if you don't know anything about the Tournament of Roses parade, they have designers who work and kind of set the float together. So it's like foam and metal and all these things. But it is your job to cover it every inch with natural material.
Every surface has to be covered.
Yeah, so it's everything from seeds to beans. The folks next to us had a sea float, and they were doing all of this that looked like plankton, but it was with like green beans. I mean, it is very. I mean,
isn't that great? I love that. That's so much fun.
Yeah. So there was a lot of really interesting work being done, but it was really cool as a master gardener to get involved, and so I did a lot of the rose work on the float. I'm actually staring up at my husband right at the end of Float Fest, so that after the parade is over, you can go tour the floats, and walk around them and look. And he actually grabbed one of the roses from where I had been putting the roses on, so I'd have a little memento,
tiny little memento
to Mississippi, and a little something to remember by. But we're hoping to go back this year.
Those of us who really, really love the Rose Bowl parade for that reason have lots and lots of investment in what does the seed of a unique fill in the blank look like. You know what I mean? You learn so much about the various plant materials in all their incarnations, and it's such a delight to see. Of course, the Rose Parade does depend on volunteers. I have friends from California who've done it for a long time, and they're there's always something else to learn. There's always another flower that somebody's decided to start using, another seed, sometimes there's grasses, that have just literally been taken down to their serious rods. There's no leaf left to them. They're just there. And they're really beautiful ways of doing that, which then, frankly, sometimes rolls over into the floral design world, because we do see more and more, as time goes by, more and more natural materials are being featured in that world as well. So y'all are leading the charge for all of us. That's wonderful. Tell me a little bit about you, Sophie. I know I'm holding you too long, but I wanted to just find out, how did you get into gardening? Everybody's got a story. Tell me yours.
Well, I have always loved nature. I've loved being outside. As a kid, my parents definitely didn't let us watch all the TV we wanted, didn't plop us in front, as a babysitter. So we were always outside. My mom is also an artist and interior designer, and so we were always, trying to find ways to be in nature. So it's something I've always really craved. And as a matter of fact, Paul and I for a year lived in Fondren Corner, and the thing that really made me want to move was that I needed to touch grass. Not having a yard was hard. So I have always loved being outside, but to me, it's actually an extension of interior design. I love how I get to paint, but with plants. I think that is so cool. And just, I'm a lifelong learner. I have done a master's degree and some other work, and they're always joking, okay, what is your next thing? And that's actually how Master Gardener came along. Is I had just completed some accreditation, and my husband said, all right, now you're doing your Master Gardener. And as soon as I
got to work both sides of your brain.
Are you doing Master Naturalist?
That's wonderful. I do think that having that eye makes a big difference, and having that kind of ability to determine what it is you want to do, plus the desire to learn something. I'm famous. There's actually a T-shirt that says I learn something new every day, even if I forgot it yesterday. But there's one of those things that if we're not learning something new every year in our garden, what are we doing? You don't want to make the same mistake twice. I want to make a new mistake so I can learn something different from it, or just celebrate some kind of beautiful thing. I'm growing a tomato that I've never grown before this year, and it has been such a treat to see it, ripen and turn different than my other ones have done. I really appreciate your willingness to open up and show everybody that. I love that there's going to be other master gardeners as well as good information there, but I know that what they're coming to see is Sophie's garden, and I look forward to encouraging people to be there. I really hope that you and I'll get a chance to sit and talk about, after y'all go, maybe next year we'll have another interview about the Rose Bowl parade. That'd be fun. But please give my best to Paul. I have to tell you this, y'all. Paul Wolf took a picture of me in a hat, and I don't usually take pictures in hats. That picture is now all over the internet of me. He got a better smile than most people can get out of me. So it worked. It worked to my advantage as well as to his. Sophie, I look forward to seeing you on the tour. Thank you very much for being here with me today.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Take care of yourself. We'll see you again soon, y'all. Listen, it's Sophie Wolf. She is on the tour for Fondren's Bottletree Garden Tour. This is going to be a spectacular tour. And frankly, I love the gardens that are on it. There's some that are not, I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is, because once you buy your tickets, you'll get your maps and you'll know where you're going. But they're literally pockets all over Fondren of both vegetable and flower growers, as well as some very, very sophisticated landscape design type gardens. But all of those, I think, have a place, and that's part of why the tour is going on. So y'all get yourselves to FondrenGardenTour.com and get yourselves into that world. It's going to be fun. You'll have a good time, I promise. You might even run into me. I won't be showing my garden this year, but I will be going to visit some of the others. We have so many good things to talk about here today. Y'all are so cute. This is really... I didn't hear your voice for half a segment, so you get a text. Look at that. Who is the star here? Who is the diva here? Y'all are so fun. Y'all do the best, the very, very best. And now my email is filling up with people wanting to know more about Sophie. So I'll send that information about the tour to y'all.
That's a power player in the gardening world right there.
That's right.
Sounds like a power couple.
Seriously power couple. Yeah. This is something we don't hear around here too much, but we're having a kind of a coconut theme today. A little bit of Buffett on the way out. Okay, I'm going to leave now. We were not really trying to see how many coconut songs there are, but I think we're finding out pretty quickly.
I know them all, yeah.
I think you do. Oh, those bartenders, you have to be careful. Don't forget, today is Daylilies, A Wonderful World, the 29th annual Daylily Show happening at the train depot in Hattiesburg. The sale is at noon, and the show is from 1 to 4. So don't miss it. If you're anywhere near there, you need to be there. Trust me, you want to be, because it's beautiful.
And all these plant sales, I have to say, I'm the one sitting here in the studio as y'all get out and have fun. They look like a blast.
Yes.
So if you're looking for something low-key to
really
do
good time.
That's fun, you get to see all the local awesomeness and wonderful people. Get out and go to your local plant sales and farmers markets, because, I mean, my experience at them is always fun, but you guys are having a blast. And I mean, really, it looks like an amazing time. I mean, how can you beat
Plant Society people? Yeah. Plant Society people, for the most part, are a tough bunch to crack. They know what they're doing. They know who they like. They know who they don't like. They know what's going on, and they have a very serious point of view. And as soon as you show up and step into their world, you can be their friend too. Okay, I'm telling you the truth. I have wandered up into some really austere plant societies and come out with lifelong friends, because once you are having the same interest that they're having, everybody can learn something from everybody. And that's part of the Plant Society cachet, is that everybody's trying to learn something else at the next step. For example, I was looking this morning at Dr. Eddie Smith's daylilies that are blooming from his crosses. In other words, he made those. Okay, this is not a daylily that exists. He crossed two and made new daylilies. And hopefully one of them will end up being named, Garden Mama Daylily. I mean, who knows? But you name them. If you make it, you name them. And that's one reason Plant Society people continue to persevere and continue to do what they do, is because they want to discover something that nobody else has done before. How cool is that? Love that. Trying for the first time to grow some fruits and veggies in raised beds. This is Emily, who is saying that she's having a little trouble. She heard that blood meal and bone meal were good to mix together for sugar baby watermelons in the soil. I did this before planting the seedlings, and this is the only bed that's growing all these mushrooms. Yeah, it is growing some pretty good mushrooms. Tons of them are there every morning and gone every evening. Yeah, that's true. From online research, it seems that they do more good than harm. Is this true? Okay. Whew. This is a big discussion. We have to go back to the bone meal and blood meal thing. Bone meal and blood meal are both good organic amendments for your soil. They are both slaughterhouse byproducts, so you have to be aware of that. And it may or may not, I mean, I use them, but bone meal takes 6 months to activate. So if you plant, if you plant a bulb you put in a bed with bone meal and you plant bulbs in it, they're not going to get anything from it in the first year of their growing season. It's only going to start to come into place later on in that first year, okay? Blood meal, on the other hand, is pretty instant and is a nitrogen source, which is what we're seeing here. These are mushrooms that will come up from an excess of nitrogen. It's not to say that it's a bad thing, but I will also tell you that it is an indication that, because the blood meal is very acidic in its nature, and the soil is too, your pH is probably going to be a little bit off for watermelons. You would probably have better success growing blueberries in this particular soil. So I'm going to suggest that you get a soil test, but if you would like, the mushrooms are not hurting things, they're just telling you that things are too wet and too nitrogen rich for a lot of purposes. So the pH question, though, is a real strong one, and you can remove the mushrooms that are there, the fungi that are there, simply by adding garden lime to the bed. It's not going to hurt anything, and it will slow down their progress. But the bigger issue is always going to be, why are they doing this? Why are they here? And I would suggest a soil test for that reason, to be sure you've got a pH that is within the range for growing the fruits that you want to grow. So that's what I would do, is a soil test. Pretty picture, though, I got to tell you. These are just lovely. They're really beautiful. For the most part, I'm a fungi fan. Obviously, there's plenty of them that are troublesome, but I'm not the one that's going to go out and just crush every patch that pops up. But that's one of the interesting bits and pieces of the puzzle is if you know a mycologist, they can help you with these things because they've studied. But when you read stuff online, you may or may not be reading about your specific circumstances. So that's why I want to encourage you to get yourself a soil test and make sure that soil itself is ready for the plants you want to grow. Mushrooms beside the point at that moment. Yeah, I'm not laughing at Emily at all. I shouldn't have looked at that text line. I should have just kept going. There's a whole other world here this morning, which is not that unusual, actually. Not that unusual.
Well, back on the fungi,
yes,
there, I was watching a documentary the other day. It was, love doing that, learning, but it was talking about when did mankind go from this just hunter-gatherer and not doing math and not really thinking outside the box, which it did for hundreds of thousands of years. They say man ate the magic mushroom. And that's what started his ability to process and deal with all of the grandiose,
the stepping into consciousness.
That's right. That's where it all began. Was Mother Nature.
There are stories.
Yeah.
There are.
Found
stories.
it fascinating. I've seen that before, but it was a greatly in-depth one.
Mm-hmm.
But all that Mother Nature offers us.
We can read about ergot of rye too.
So many things.
Like
I've seen so many. Like when you started processing wheat and these different things and the effect it had on the brain. Cooking meat and instead of eating
entirely
raw.
different.
Yeah, so mankind took leaps because it worked with Mother Nature, and that's something we got to continue to do.
There's always that who thought of this, who decided we should cook this meat, and somebody had to have found the fire. I mean, this is real basic stuff, but when it comes into our lives today, a little bit closer in for us is who was the first human that decided they could break open an oyster? Who was the first person that soaked those olives and decided they could eat them? Because you can't eat those things.
Same with crab. I mean, who thought about steaming crab so you could actually eat the meat rather than come out as slime?
It's not, and these are the things that we have to be thankful to our forebears for doing for us so that we can enjoy some things. But it needs to not limit us either. There's still plenty of things we need to understand and need to figure out. I would like to make kohlrabi chips, for example, but they don't come out right. So what am I not doing? What do I need to soak those in? What do I, there's so many bits and pieces. I'll get 4 recipes for those this year, believe me. Corinne's got a sweet potato in the kitchen that has grown sprouts. Can I plant it? Yes, you can, absolutely. I don't think I'd try to root them in water. I would probably plant the whole thing. But she says, can I cut them into slips and plant in a container immediately or try to root them? I would plant them immediately because it's time. You're right. The time to get the harvest in for this fall, it's real important. Really important. So that's neat. And
I want to say, Ann, I'm not going to have time to get this amazing picture you just sent in. We'll put it up next Saturday because it won't get in.
Gorgeous.
But wow, what a way to walk into your house, huh?
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. You put an arch at one end of that, you can have a wedding.
Man, I tell you, that's beautiful, isn't it?
And that's why people grow daylilies. Y'all will see this one next week. We will show it off. But
Definitely.
The reason why we grow daylilies is because they all bloom, and it is a beautiful, beautiful walkway lined on both sides with daylilies of various colors. I'm going to hold that image in my head today. It'll make me feel better. Thanks, y'all. Y'all are the best audience in radio, and I don't care who says anything else. Gardeners are the most fun people that I've ever met. Thank you for being here. See you next week.